Joining me now to discuss that pick, Steve Milloy is here. He's a senior E&E Legal Fellow and a former Trump-Pence EPA transition team member. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Hey, Vince, thanks for having me back.
The EPA, I often think of it as just, the kind of organization that gets in the way of success in the United States and doesn't really do much to help the actual environment. What do you make of Lee Zeldin being picked to run it?
I'm so excited. He is going into that agency with exactly the right attitude, which is, President Trump's policy to use our energy industry to make America great again. And we're going to keep the air clean and the water clean, but, we are going to do environmental regulations such that it actually helps America versus what's been happening under Biden and Obama before that, and even under Republican presidents before that. EPA has been out of control. EPA has run the administration. EPA has run our economy into the ground. But now with Lee Zeldin implementing Donald Trump's policies, I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, it seems like a lot of the job is going to be, for him, is not to get in the way of innovation and to focus on those primary tasks of clean air and clean water.
Yeah. Well, so I've been working on these issues, Vince, for almost 35 years now. When I first started, we had clean air and clean water. and over the past 35 years, EPA has done nothing but overregulate us into the ground. And, that is going to come to an end. So, he's going to first get a grip on the agency, stop their negative influence. And then going forward, there's a lot of reform that needs to be done. And, we'll get to that. But the first thing to do is to get a grip on the agency, stop the overregulation, unleash the American energy industry.
Is that an agency that needs to have its house cleaned? Are there a lot of people who need to leave?
Well, yeah, of course, no question about that. As a matter of fact, there was even news that Trump might relocate EPA, hoping that his employees go poof. Look, when Nixon formed it by executive order in 1970, states didn't have environmental protection. Environmental protection was new to America. So, maybe reorganizing things into a federal EPA made sense. But, 20 years after it started, the environment was clean. We really didn't need an EPA anymore. States have their own EPAs. The vast majority of environmental protection is done in states. There are a couple federal issues. We need a much smaller EPA, and I think President Trump wants to get to that.
Yeah, one of the things that the environmental bureaucracy, such that it is, has done is it really seems like it's just built to protect incumbent businesses and doesn't allow startups to really thrive in the country because it creates so many barriers to entry that it makes the United States inhospitable to businesses who'd like to set up shop here.
Well, sure. I mean, if you want to get into, say, making cars or drilling oil or making some sort of chemical or something, I mean, the barrier to entry is exceedingly high, and a lot of that is because of environmental regulation, and a lot of that is overregulation, which the companies have, the large companies have just gotten used to, if not having encouraged it, because they know that it's a barrier to entry. And so they have a de facto monopoly because no one else can afford to even start. This has long been the case in Europe. It's the case here. We need to end this. We're all for environmental protection. We can do it sensibly. We can do it affordably, but we can't let it stymie our economy, which we've been letting happen.
Yeah, it's funny. Elon Musk told a story recently. I think this was directly related to the FAA, but perhaps you've heard it. In fact, I can guarantee you probably have, Steve. But he was talking about how as they were working on all these rockets that they build for SpaceX, that the federal government, ordered SpaceX to conduct a study about how likely it would be that a piece of the rocket would hit a shark in the ocean. And so he had to commission a study to answer the question of what is the likeliness that a rocket makes contact with a shark. And he said and the government was supremely unhelpful with giving them data on the surface area of sharks all across the planet. And in other words, they just created ridiculous, unnecessary challenges to the kind of innovation we want.
Yeah, so EPA has been making up regulations for decades. I mean, if people knew how EPA did the quote-unquote science behind its regulations, I mean, it's really shocking the way they torture, laboratory mice to get the results they want, to back up all their scary, risk assessments and regulations. And the government, we have learned a lot about the environment over the past 50 plus years. Unfortunately, our regulatory agencies are, pretending that it's 50 years ago and we don't have any of this knowledge. And, that needs to change. And I'm hoping that President Trump, through Lee Zeldin, is just going to, fix the agency once and for all, if not shrink it into almost nothingness.
Yeah. Also, I'm reminded of the gas stove studies that the government was relying on to tell us that none of us should have gas stoves. And Steve, you and I may have discussed this too, which is the studies that they were using involved encasing a room in plastic and then turning the gas on a stove and just allowing the room to fill with gas and then saying that's a dangerous environment to be in. Yeah, no kidding. You created the dangerous environment. That's not how most people use their gas stoves.
Yeah, so that EPA has rigged the way it does these studies, or that scientists rig the way they do these studies. That's not news. The most interesting part of that study was that it was funded by Communist China. And there is a lot of quote-unquote science that EPA uses that has been funded by Communist China. And guess what? Communist China has no interest in us succeeding. They fund the environmental groups to hinder our economy, to wreck our economy. And so this all needs to be overhauled. I mean, the EPA is in such dire need of, we really need to call in an airstrike and start over.
Right. So is it possible to defang the EPA such that no matter who takes over in a subsequent administration, it's going to take a while to get everything to set up again to be as tyrannical as the EPA is now?
Well, I think the best strategy moving forward, to fix the EPA is really going to take Congress. Fix the EPA permanently for the long term is going to take Congress. And so I think the immediate strategy is to turn America around, get people to where get things to where people are feeling positive about the economy, and get reelected and get more Republicans that are going to be able to vote for these changes that need to be made at EPA, make them permanent.
Okay. And so Lee Zeldin being placed in that role, you feel really good that he's going to be able to affect the kind of change that'll improve that agency.
I mean, he's a young guy. He's very MAGA. He's very loyal to President Trump. I've met him. I have confidence in him. Just like I have confidence in J.D. Vance. He's a young guy. They've got a lot to learn, and these agencies, there's going to be a lot of resistance.
Yes.
Okay. We saw that with the first administration, Trump 1.0, Trump 2.0. They're already getting ready for it. So we're going to have to be prepared for that. I think we are. We've got a better Supreme Court, got more Supreme Court decisions behind us. So I think we're going to do okay. And I think, Lee Zeldin is going to do a great job.
I do worry that the EPA is exactly the kind of agency that is going to be thick with people who pretend to be environmentalists, but instead they're just left-wing bureaucrats who prize their power. And it's going to be more challenging perhaps than other agencies. Am I wrong about that? Well,
no. I mean, the environment today, the environment as a policy issue is all about they're really communists. It's not about the environment. Our environment is clean. We way overregulate, and we overregulate through EPA because these people want to control the economy. It's all about controlling us, telling us what to do, what kind of cars we can drive, how we can heat our houses, what kind of light bulbs we can have, what kind of toilets we can. Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
This all comes from EPA. These people want to tell us how to live.
Yeah, I'm done with that. I don't like that. I don't want to be told how to live. We're good. Lee Zeldin should go in and say no more. Vince doesn't like that. Hey, Steve, thank you very much. Senior E&E Legal Fellow. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.